So now we're going to move on to talking about credit card interest. Now, the actual maths that we're going to be doing for this particular topic isn't different at all to what we've been doing previously with compound interest, but there are just a couple of key terms and definitions we have to go over before we get into some questions. So typically, credit cards are issued by banks and they're used by you, the consumer, to buy any goods and services right now and pay for them later. Now, what a lot of banks will offer is what's called an interest-free period. So this is a particular period of time that you have to pay back that money when interest is not charged. So if you buy something and then give back the money, for example, the next day, still in the interest-free period, then you will not be charged any interest. It is only after this interest-free period where the interest starts to get charged to you. Now, this interest is calculated daily on the outstanding balance, so the balance you owe, using compound interest. So, if we go straight into a question, I will show you how we can apply what we've been doing before with compound interest to a question like this. But there's one key thing that I'm going to underline. The interest is calculated compounding daily. So this is a bit of a hint to how our interest rate and number of compounding periods will change. Okay, so let's say we have a question where someone has a credit card with a compound interest rate of 18% per annum and has a no interest free period. Now this person has used the credit card to buy, all right, CC for credit card, to buy something costing $280. And the credit card was paid 14 days later. So paid 14 days later. So here, this is 14 days after the interest-free period. Okay, so using this information, we're going to try to find the total amount this person paid for the clothing and including this particular interest charged. Okay, so let's just look at the bits of information we have here. We have an interest rate of 18% per annum per year. We have a principal or a present value, if we want to use our compound interest language, of $280. And 14 days have gone now. So we're going to write down, first of all, our compound interest formula, because as I wrote up here, the interest on credit cards are calculated using compound interest. So I'm going to write this formula down one more time in case you've forgotten it. Our future value equals our present value times 1 plus the rate to the power of n. Okay, so we're using this, we're recapping some of the ideas we talked about, but for credit cards, it's going to be slightly different. Now, we have our present value, which is 280. Our rate per year is 18%, but remember, interest is charged daily. So there are 365 days in a year. We have to take our interest rate of 18%. To find the interest for one day, we have to divide this by 365. And our number here, since we've already converted the rate to days, we've been given the amount of days after that this person has paid. This isn't in years, right? Since it's already in 14 days, we can just write 14 as our n. Because our number of compounding periods, there's no converting we have to do because the question has already told us that it's taken 14 days. Now, substituting this all in, we get that our future value equals $280 times 1 plus, and the rate we're going to write in is 0.18 divided by 365. And we're going to take this to the power of 14. So, like I said before, this is really just compound interest, but the only difference is because credit cards are charged daily, a lot of these rates that we have are going to have to get divided by 365 to find a daily rate. Okay, once we do this particular thing, rounding it to 2 decimal places, we get that this is $281.94. So, let's just break this down a little bit. From this amount that we have, $281, we have the $280 present value, which then means that we have $1.94 in interest. Okay, so we can see that the interest on these credit cards doesn't actually end up being that high, but it can add up. And as a bank, if you've got someone who maybe spends a little bit recklessly and buys a lot and has a lot of interest accumulating, you're going to make quite a bit of money relatively quickly. But this is how we can calculate the cost of using a credit card. We have our original amount that we borrowed, because as we said, with credit cards, we use the money to buy things and pay for it later. But if we pay outside this interest-free period, we have to pay compound interest on that. So we have our principal that we pay for, and we calculate the future value, interest included, using the exact same formula we've been doing for compound interest, making sure to divide our rate by 365 and just leaving, so long as the question tells us it's in days, like we had up here, we put our days as our n, our number of compounding periods.